Rent AI talent on demand. Be a hero and get Nerd Rabbit.
Welcome to the Art of Intelligence, where we decode the future of AI one story, one use case, and one bold idea at a time. I'm your host, Barlas Yuce, inviting you to join me and industry leaders as we explore how artificial intelligence is reshaping our world, from the boardrooms to the classroom and beyond. Whether you're an innovator, skeptic, or AI curious, this is your front row seat to the real conversations and practical insight behind the buzzword. Let's paint the bigger picture together. Perfect. So today we have a great guest, Michael Piccininni, a dynamic leader driving Dell's AI and cloud sales partnerships. With an impressive background in accelerating technology adoption, Michael plays a key role in shaping how enterprises leverage Dell's AI innovation. Under his guidance, Dell has evolved from being a hardware leader to a force in enterprise AI infrastructure, empowering organizations of all sizes to unlock value from data and automation. Michael, thanks for joining us to share Dell's perspective on mastering the next wave of AI. Yeah, anytime. This is, I've been wanting to get you on this podcast for a minute. I know that you're a very busy guy and do a lot of things and going all over the United States, picking up those flight points. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to ask you a question that today is the first time we're asking this question, but I'm going to ask you a question. If you could have a last meal, and not to get morbid, but a last meal, a 4-course last meal, what would it be and from where?
Oh, I make it count. Final meal, 4 courses too. So
Well,
let's just give me.
Let's make it easier. 3 courses. And then from where? Do you want your mom to make it? Do you have a favorite restaurant? Like things like that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go there. So, since it's my last meal, I'm going to pull from different sources, if that's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, this is it. So I got to make it count, right? So I think I'd like to make sure I hit all the bases. So since I'm going to be gone right after I eat, I can take some good risks, right? So let's go to start with some fantastic smorgasbord of raw oysters from somewhere nice or multiple places, right? It's my last. I get to call it out. So yeah, oysters from around the world to start.
Okay.
I think that's
I like
fair.
it. I like it.
I'm sticking with your 4 courses now because I can't die without maybe one last helping of my mother's pasta fagioli. I think that's some of the best soup on earth, right?
Nice.
Big fan base around that one. I think you got to go steak for the main course. Right?
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. What cut?
I love ribeye, so I'm a ribeye guy.
Me too.
I feel like I may as well go for like the Peter Lugers or some big name. Go down fighting. I don't know if you have a favorite steakhouse. I feel like every time I name one, they no longer are the top ones, and I got to go somewhere else.
Nick and Sam.
Good,
Downtown Dallas.
solid ribeye. I think would hit the mark, and then we'll round it out. I'm not a big dessert guy, but when I do indulge, you're in Florida now, right? So anything key lime pie, a really good one, would be a nice way to cap it off. That's my
I
end.
love the key lime pies, but the steak is my favorite. I'll take Peter Luger's. I have a favorite place called Nick and Sam. Mr. Phil Romano is part owner, along with some cop from New York. It's a really great place. I really, really enjoy it.
Great spot.
Yeah. So let's talk. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of today's program and the questions that I'm going to ask you. But before we get into that, I really would like to know, who is Michael? What is it that got you into technology to begin with? I mean, you could have gone anywhere, right? You could have done a lot of things, but technology is where you stuck. What got you in?
So maybe what got me in is I kind of grew up within technology, Barlas, right? So it's interesting to say and think about, but basically I'm like a second generation technology salesperson, right? My dad was in technology. He worked for McDonnell Douglas coming out of college, and he was selling mainframes and time sharing.
Big boy
back
job.
in the day. Yeah. So he was out there through his entire career, mainframe and mainframe computing, time sharing, which is kind of similar to a lot of the cloud work I do today, which is kind of full circle. It's interesting. Um, but yeah, his whole career was basically selling big data center infrastructure, renting data center infrastructure. He moved into other software technologies through his career, right? But that was kind of how I grew up. We always had a computer at home, always dialing. We always had that really long phone line from the kitchen to plug into the modem in the other rooms to
Yeah.
to get access, right? But I out of college, I actually was a headhunter, right? I was a software sales recruiter right out of school, and I liked the people that I was talking to, and I liked the industry a lot. And I took the next couple of steps and found my way to a software company, got into inside sales, learned the ropes, earned the stripes, made a couple hundred phone calls a day to get the education placed, right?
Yeah.
And then
You
work my
got
way
you
to the
got to
field.
you got to put that time in at doing inside sales in every sales job.
Yeah, unbelievable way to learn the business and build some grit, right? And was doing a lot of work within infrastructure and network management and data protection, at a software company for a good run, right? Moved into application development and advanced services. And then I found my way in 2009 to EMC, working within, the data center storage and data center infrastructure space. And, I think just from a matter of time and what was going on in the industry, was able to find my way into what's now considered this global alliances business within Dell. Dell bought EMC to build out a strategic data center business, right, and infrastructure, and where we're at now, $100 billion plus. We think, with leading infrastructure products, endpoint products, laptops, desktops, data center networking, all the way, the full portfolio says a lot of what we're able to do and reach, right? But been really privileged to be able to work with some unbelievable end users, but also an unbelievable amount of strategic partners. And what we were doing several years ago was private cloud, multi-cloud type use cases, trying to get to the edge. And it's been really great to see this whole thing not just evolve, but I mean, systematic change, right? We're still doing a lot of legacy work, if you will, right? Selling
Sure.
infrastructure, building out cloud infrastructure for enterprise applications. And now there's this massive wave of accelerated computing, everything AI, and we're right in the center of it.
That's fantastic. So your title today is Director of Global Alliance. Can you tell me what a day in the life of a Director of Global Alliances does? Dale?
Sure. So, director, just a title, right? At the end of the day, I lead a team that looks after a set number of our global alliances partners. And if you take maybe one step back, what we look at when we consider what makes up a global alliance type partnership, it's a complex and indirect route to the customer, right? So if you think about how most companies go to market, they sell directly to users, customers, right? Or they may perhaps go to market through a traditional, value-added reseller type of channel partner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we really look at the global alliances partnerships as more of like an ecosystem type of play. Sometimes they sell to, sometimes they sell through, sometimes they resell, sometimes they're hosting, sometimes it's a little bit of everything, right? So, day in the life that I lead is I have a team of folks that are based in the U.S. and Canada, parts of Latin America,
Very
and
talented folks, by the way, that I've met. So great job.
yeah, no, thank you. I believe they're the best in the business, right? And basically what we're doing all day long is trying to keep the partnership in good standing, right? Make sure that everyone's up to date on who we are, what we're doing, updates to the portfolio and ways they may be able to bring it in house, monetize it, right? And then it's also working with those same partners in pursuits, right? So it's not only just them consuming and building things independently. Oftentimes they're working on dedicated opportunities with banks and governments and all walks of life around the customer base. So there's a mix of working on the day to day with our partners, working on net new opportunities and collaborating with our partners, with the end users involved. And, I'm a manager, right? So doing a lot of things, both helping my people and developing them, and working through some, any difficult, roadblocks or anything that needs to be worked through, and hopefully doing a good job helping them develop, and continue to, progress their careers.
Well, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. So
Thank
I've
you.
seen your directs, and they love you, and you do such a phenomenal job.
Thank
Um,
you.
Thanks for that. So let me go into some of the questions that I have for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
So with Dell's AI Factory, it's received a lot of attention recently. Can you tell us what sets Dell's approach to AI infrastructure apart from the competition, and how it supports customers moving workloads from cloud to the edge?
Sure. Yeah. No, thank you. Good question. I think it's been really exciting, right? I think one of the things that is really great from where I sit every day is, for years, if you're looking at infrastructure products, as an individual item, a server, networking component, a storage array, there's only so many people, I think, that look at that and go, okay, let's all get a big meeting together and talk about a storage device, or a network switch or something, right? It's a very specific use case. It's usually a specific audience. However, when you're able to take a lot of these, what are very complex individual items, and really build them into something that, I love the name AI Factory, right? Because I think what it really showcases is the outcome is something that's very relevant, right? It's going to change the way you do business. It's got a unit of measure like a token, right? But if you back it up a little bit, what we're doing is what we believe is an industry leading way, right, of putting together parts that, when you do the stack of hardware solutions and you tie it all together with both Dell proprietary IP, but also this open ecosystem that we have of ISV partners. And then, from my selfish perspective, engaging some of the industry leading partnerships that we have, we believe we have a completely differentiated way of, not just creating an AI factory, but getting it in place and running it so customers can get outcomes that are better than what they were hoping for, right? So I think the real differential way we're doing this is best of breed or industry leading type solutions, we believe, right? On the component level, but also put together with purpose, right? Where it's efficient from day one, it's made in a sustainable way, it's open, right? So we're really trying to look at this as a holistic way of helping companies, kind of meeting them where they are, but then also guiding, for a better outcome and a speedier one, right? So what makes it different there? The best components, right, with the best plan, um, put together with the best partnerships and services type organizations, great differentiation. And I definitely like to highlight again the openness, right, where we're not single threaded, right, whether it be your choice of silicon, your choice of ISVs or models, really leaving it that way where we're not trying to shoehorn something in. We're meeting you where you are and helping speed and out.
Great answer. Good answer. So, and the audience seems to like it. So,
We love it.
they love it. So two questions from what you just said.
Yeah.
You meet people where they are. Does that mean that you meet them in every cloud, or is there a particular cloud of choice that you guys are using?
Yeah, no, I think meeting where they are, I think there's two. I know when we were, we've talked about this, right? I think one of the things that um, when we say meeting them where we are, we really believe that, like, the strategy should be help organizations bring their AI to the data, right? And there's so much data that's still on-prem, but there's also a lot of data that's siloed everywhere. I talk to folks all day long, and the discussion. What's really interesting is everyone has a strategy, but until you start broadening out these meetings, and they're bringing different business units and different stakeholders that want to participate in an AI outcome discussion, only to find out that they don't just have distributed servers throughout the country or throughout the world, but they have one department using AWS and they have a different department using GCP. There's the marketing teams using Snowflake, and then they start pulling other people into the meetings, and they just found a Teradata warehouse or a mainframe that they've been
Did
running
you just
critical.
did you just use Tyson's analogy of everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth?
I did
Yeah, I love it. All right, good job.
in my own AI way. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I think the main thing is meeting where they are. They may be all over the place, right? And I think that's where, and not that we've done this before, but it reminds me a lot of, kind of this, the first wave of cloud and cloud adoption, right? There's certain things that never moved. There's certain things people are still trying to move up to, public clouds, for example. But when you come down to it, you need two strategies, right? You need a way of looking at the environment holistically so that you can have a level of how you're managing your data and your data pipeline, and then also where you're going to run the workloads, right? And we think that that's the whole point of we can help you bring the data to your AI, so you're not trying to fix problems in a very fragmented.
Yeah, that's a really great way of looking at it. To ask you this based off of what you just said, what about verticals? What verticals are you and your team focusing on more? Is Dell more of a manufacturing play or software? I don't know. Megs. I mean, you tell me where do you guys find the most traction?
Right. Um, I hate answers like that are depends. So I would answer all, right? It's one where I'm not going to be the subject matter expert of all, but I could tell you that I'm yet to find an industry type, a customer in any industry type that we don't identify where we can play a role from an infrastructure provider, and an AI delivered service would be a differentiation for them, right? Examples are all the way across the board. I mean, we've talked about in any given week. I don't know if I don't think you were there, but there was just GTC DC last week, right? And very heavy federal and state local presence, but I spoke to several automotive, folks, right? Healthcare, um, telco, and telcos kind of using their edge locations to really get to those far edge type use cases. Um, Things as simple as chat agents for assisting customer service, sales assistants, things like that. But when I'm telling you that it's not just industries, but it's sectors of those industries, right, that we continue to peel that onion back. And it's not just, let's just say, financials, right? It's the financials and a sub for fintech or international fintech or folks trying to do more in the depths of the algo trading that they're doing. It's pretty much, it seems so far to be almost unlimited to what vertical and then sector of that vertical could benefit from this.
Wow. That's that makes it sound like anyone could use Dell.
I hope so.
Yeah. So that was an easy layup. Uh, so by the way, Dell hasn't paid me to ask these easier questions. I just like Michael, and I love what he does
I
with
appreciate you
Dell.
taking it easy on me then.
Yeah, yeah. Anytime. I mean, you're a great person, and your team is great.
Thank you.
Um, so now Dell's in collaboration with Lotto Ecosystems, which I'm sure that's something that you work with, including Intel, AMD, and the 900,000 pound gorilla in the space, NVIDIA. How does this multi-partner approach benefit your customers in practical terms?
Sure. I think the I think the real value there, Barlas, honestly, is that we were talking about AI Factory for a minute, but I think this is one of those pieces that extends beyond just an AI Factory discussion, right? I think if you look at what we can bring to the table, whether you're building a server or you want to leverage a laptop, right? I mean, it goes back to, I think, silicon diversity, but more around the lines of openness, because again, back to that example of maybe meeting you where you are. If an organization has been an Intel or an AMD or an NVIDIA shop for decade or decades,
Mhm.
it's going to be a lot less of a hurdle, right, to maybe adopt the similar technology that they've built other applications or other parts of their environment around. So that's one thing, right? Kind of making it less of a jump from a customer experience perspective because they have, comfort with, or maybe, long-term relationships that they want to continue with a particular, vendor, right? I think the other thing though is if we're in more of a driver's position, or, again, my partner ecosystem is playing a role in the driver's position, not everyone makes things the same, right? Not everything is built to do the same thing the same way, right? So
Right.
sometimes I think having that ability of being flexible, using the right, using the right hammer to hit the right nail, right? There may be a workload that's more suited for an NVIDIA or an AMD or an Intel Gaudi 3 type of use case. On the client device side, they may benefit from using Snapdragon, right, from Qualcomm, right? So I think that there's a lot of use cases. We talked about it almost being an unlimited, industry to subsector and beyond, right? And I think that's where the real value comes in to have that flexibility.
Yeah, I really like that thought process. There can be a lot of companies that are out there that can use a single thread when it comes to an AMD or an NVIDIA, and I'm glad that you guys are using multiple, Intel included. Um, you know, Dell's been around for a minute. Michael Dell has been around for a minute, Michael. So if you're listening, just so I'm a fan. Uh, how has Dell having access to so many PC server technology over the years, how has that helped accelerate AI adoption within companies? Using Dell and AI Factory, has the name recognition been able to allow you guys to really get in there and help companies do more with AI just because you have the contracts in place? And if yes, can you give us an example of where the AI factory has helped the company come together and do something special? You don't have to name names, vertical.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think so the top of your question, right? So yeah, been around for a minute. So Michael Dell started what's now Dell Technologies in 1984. So that's a good run. Been pretty successful. Um, I think it's interesting because I think we are in a we're in one of those situations where everything that's been built and the speed in which the company moves, develops, innovates, and goes to market, almost a perfect position of the timing of this AI wave initiating and us being right there, right? I think just being in the industry of making infrastructure products, already having those relationships in place with the silicon providers we talked about a few minutes ago, right? Intel, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, others. it's it's one of those situations where I feel like the company's name is trusted. I think it's well referred to, across the enterprises
Mm-hmm.
of the world, right? The federal governments of the world. I think
Dude,
that
it's a Dell. Yeah.
there's a lot of trust there. It's a company that puts a massive focus on security, right, and sustainability and supply chain, right? So, we're not just making good things. We can get them to you. We can get them to you cost efficiently, right? And they work. And we have the services that can back them up, and we have the partner ecosystem that's so well adopted that can help deployments and do these advanced, use case outcome type of things. Um, so I think, yeah, absolutely, everything kind of stacks really well to why us, right? I think the company's doing really well. It's firing on all cylinders. The demand is there, the interest is there. We're doing deals. I mean, these environments, some of them are bigger than I ever thought, single transaction sizes would be, right? But at the same time, even it doesn't just have to be the biggest of the big, right? I mean, we're working with companies that have trusted us for years from they like our laptops or desktops. But you know what? There's a posted use case that I love referring to all the time because it's something that's in Texas. Dell's based in Round Rock, right outside Austin, right? And there's the city of Amarillo, right? So city of Amarillo, they have like, I think it's 200,000 residents, but out of those 200,000 residents, they speak over 60 languages, right? Within the
What?
city
I
itself. Yeah.
never would have thought about that,
So, yeah.
ever. I've been to
And
Amarillo,
you,
and I can tell you, I would never have thought that.
right? So if you think about it, just very, so, we've talked a few times about like the use cases, the outcomes, and I think putting that simple example out there is like, you know what? They trusted us for years to give them, access to certain technologies, right? And they're running into a situation where it's awfully hard for a city of that size to employ enough people that can speak that many languages to help people just get simple access, right? How do I get signed up, my kid signed up for school? How do I go do this? Civil services that you need access to, right? But guess what? We're able to put together a small form factor solution, stack on top of it some of our embedded ISVs, right? And to help them deploy this AI agent, Emma, right? That speaks all the languages. You can go to her and get your answers quickly and accurately, right? And I think those things are, everyone needs a little handholding, right? But I think that just kind of highlights it's not only just the big banks or the federal government or anyone else. It could be a small city looking to help the residents, and we can help them get there.
Love that story. I really did, especially since I just published an article that I wrote today on smart cities in China, where they're using an Emma type AI to to do like this smart city where all of the schools, all of the information, all the fire, all the police, all the pothole regulations, all of the everything is in a single spot. So you can ask this question or call 911 or their version of it all in one place while also getting the language traction. If you haven't read the article yet, listeners, go on there and read it. Um, but yeah, I think that what you guys do is phenomenal, and the name recognition is beyond gold. I think your team, that name recognition, Dell's product is a perfect mix, and I think we're going to hear a lot more about Dell coming in the future. Um, so you brought up the fact that security is really important to you guys. Can you tell me in this complex world of security and regulations, what Dell is doing to stay in front of this AI scary world?
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So I think from let's start with just from an architectural perspective, right? I think that um, there's the starting point of making the products with security embedded in them, right? Where the device itself is safe from not allowing bad actors or outside access to them, right? So I think that's kind of like the foundational level. I think, also when manufacturing things, pure supply chain, super important, right? Where am I getting my components from? Are they from safe sources? And can I get, them repeatedly and consistently? That's at like a product level though, right? I think the other thing is really interesting, right, from the perspective of the world's a scary place sometimes, right? But you can put controls in place. I think we've done a good job of being regimented in knowing our customers, right? Making sure that who we are talking to is who they claim to be, and we're not doing anything that would put anyone at risk. The interesting thing I think is at on the customer or deployment side of things, depending on where you are in the world, there's a lot of complexity, right? And I think a lot of things have to be taken to account, right? So relying on regional specialty leads, right, that know um, country or industry requirements, so if I look at internally for a moment, say, look, we have an industries team that knows healthcare second to none, right? They know HIPAA, they know data resiliency, they know asset lifecycle management rules. All those things, I think, really help us start the conversations with all those practices in mind, all those rules, but also best practices in mind, and make sure we're not leading folks off the path that they really should be following, right? And I think the same thing goes for our partner ecosystem. Doing a lot of work with our partners, we do see a lot of different opportunities that may be throughout the EU, for example, or throughout the Middle East, or perhaps throughout APJ, right? Where you're just seeing more and more rules around data sovereignty, right? And building, sovereign clouds, whether they be, country specific or regional specific. A lot of industry slash sovereign type use cases where, they're looking to not share too much data across or outside of the confines of the industry use case. Um, and I think those are the major areas of focus, right? Like where it's not just security, but it's governance, it's data governance, and protecting the individual end users that are going to be, leveraging the system, whether they be employees or external users.
Yeah, I love it. Great answer. Yeah, the geofencing and sovereignty was brought up to me a couple times when back in the day when I was working in one of those famous clouds that have three letters, and it was I think it was the police department in Australia, one of the big cities, and their data has to stay in Australia, stay sovereign, and can't connect to anything but government data. So just a lot of interesting things that are out there. A lot of people don't know about, and I'm glad Dell is taking that very seriously. So to come to the actual reason why we have this podcast, my favorite part. So you know, let's make that super awesome. And so, Michael, what is one AI use case that you have either seen working really well, or that you're currently doing with Dell, or that you would like to see? And let me give you an example just so you can understand some of the things that we're talking about, like being able to have an AI doctor in healthcare that has cultural IQ enough to be able to not only give information to Japanese customers, but also US customers because they like to receive their information separately. Is there something that you've seen that our listeners will find unique?
Mhm. Um, that's a good example you're giving me. I think, yeah, so I think overall, I think so far I've been in perpetual learning mode, Barlas, right? Like I think every one of these use cases, like some of them, even the ones that you think are simple, I think are more complex than, people throw out, okay, customer service. It's like, oh, really? You're just going to flip a switch and have some magical AI bot take care of all of your, I mean, your customers, I think, are important, right? You probably want them to have a good experience and get accurate information. So I think honestly, I don't really take anything for granted on the diversity of the use cases, but also the work that goes into making them like functional. That whole concept of the POC to production, I think
Mm-hmm.
is really interesting to watch, right? So I mean, I've been able to work with, I give you the city of Abilene. I wasn't, deeply embedded in that opportunity, but we're doing great work with a couple of, actually just a small handful of companies that are doing really interesting work in um, text talk, text to translation, like those use cases,
I
right?
like those. I like
But
those a lot.
very cool, right? And one of the things that as you start building, some trust there and start understanding not just their technology, but like the use cases, you start really seeing how critical these applications are, this IP is, and these companies are, because it turns out they're already embedded in call systems or internal applications that I was like, holy, you start seeing how so much of this is connected, right? But I think the more and more you get into the discussions with customer types, I've just been seeing unbelievable things, whether it be, law firms, consulting organizations working on simplifying very complex contractual work. They used to have rooms of people. I've seen teams of people that had to negotiate large statements of work, for example, right? So teams of 10, they'd be locked in a room for the last 15 days of a quarter trying to get that big, that one big deal done.
Yep.
And now
Been there,
it's,
done that.
it's a, yeah, right, right. I think we all have, right? But now it's like a team, it went from a team of 10 to a team of two, and they're leveraging all that internal IP that they've had for years. They just never could find it, right? I think it's impressive, right? I said, look, even, internally here at Dell, I think we've probably talked about it publicly, so I hope this is on the up and up. But I think, one of the things that it's impressive because, again, company's been around a long time. We have a lot of data. And I think one of the things that's been impressive is over the last year, we've rolled out this. I'm in sales, right? So try to find the one document or the one, kind of talk track you really need on your fingertips. It wasn't that easy 2, 3 years ago internally. You'd have to go to multiple sources. There's different
Right.
hubs. There's different SharePoints, right? But they've done a fantastic job rolling out what we call sales chat over the last couple of months. It continues to improve. They continue to build out the agents for it, right? So help whether you need, to talk to legal, to work through a contract, to prepare for a meeting, to prepare a follow-up email, or just find some very pertinent data that may have taken me half a day to find. I could get access to in a couple seconds, just prompt the right way,
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
I hate to be too simple, but right now I'm kind of impressed by everything.
Yeah, that's not simple at all. Like your Emma project of having a single AI giving all your information across 60 different languages. That's phenomenal. And one of the things that I have consulted on in the past is AI for industries in sales and being able to have AI create not only profiles of uh, folks that you're talking to. One of our podcast guests did a AI profile talk track where you can go in and say, I'm going to be selling to Michael Piccininni today, and can you look at his LinkedIn and build out a profile as if I was going to talk to him? What would he say if I sent him this? What would he do if this was something? And it's really honestly very interesting because you'll get feedback like, Michael's a very detail-oriented results guy, and if you send him pie-in-the-sky numbers, he's going to just not listen to you. You need to be very data-oriented, simple colors because he doesn't want to be distracted by all your thousands of different pictures you like to put on. And then make sure you give him a call right afterwards because he likes that. Like stuff like that is really important. And I think creating an AI that can help the entire sales team give information at a push of a button, that's really awesome. Make our life a lot easier.
Sure. And it gets to the point too. I think there's going to be, I think the next couple of years here, we're going to be seeing things we can't even think about right now. I know, within the healthcare space, within anywhere, right? It's going to be exciting times.
Yeah, my last guest, he was in healthcare. He said he doesn't trust a doctor that doesn't use AI. And one of his doctors had said that having AI as a tool in the doctor industry, it doesn't necessarily replace us, but what it does do is it gives you the experience of 200 doctors with 1,000 years of patient data in one spot. So, what I would like to see, and probably we'll write an article on about next week, is seeing healthcare insurance companies require doctors to take in information and print out possibilities based off of symptoms so that everything can be tried, and that way it should lower the insurance costs of doctors for malpractice because they've tried everything. So I think that's pretty awesome. Hopefully that'll lower our insurance costs as a total as well because doctors are the number one issue with big lawsuits happening in the insurance world. They're getting sued for $20 million, and of course, we pay that in our own healthcare and auto insurances for truck. But that's a whole different podcast.
It's, it's the, yeah, no, and again, I think, from like an industry standpoint, I think it applies across the board, right? I think the interesting thing is when you start looking at, in doctor to agent ratios, right?
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised, right? As you say, hey, you know what? Today you have 100,000 employees. Why wouldn't you think that you wouldn't want to have 100,000, 200,000, a million agents, right? It's
Sure.
scale, and it's a different way of scaling that we haven't really had the ability to do before, right? So it's pretty exciting. And you got to think that in the concept of strength in numbers, right? Why wouldn't you want to have an extra set of eyes or 10?
or
Work
thousands.
on
Yeah.
doing sure 1,000, right? That's the whole point, right? I think it takes a lot of potential bias out of decision making, right? I think it helps you make sure things aren't missed, right? And we're only as good as what's going on here sometimes, right? So it's nice to have a team, at least one team member helping out.
Plus, you don't want the doctor that made the least on his board um, checking you out, and there's no way to find that out one way or another. But an AI can really make things happen. So,
Right.
Michael, this is the end of the podcast, and I usually use this as an opportunity for my guests to kind of talk about what's coming next. Are there any events, any webinars, or anything like that that you would like to mention so that we can help get more of our listeners to become Dell customers?
Sure. We have a pretty significant corporate event calendar that's on Dell.com, or you can find that. It's going to let everyone know. It depends when you're watching this. So there's a couple of things that are pretty timely. We're going to have a significant presence in 2 weeks at Supercompute in St. Louis, right? That's pretty unbelievable thing to see in real time if anyone's going. I'll be at reInvent for AWS in a couple of weeks. A lot of activity there. And then going into the next year, we're going to be doing a pretty significant amount of AI panels throughout the US, parts of Canada. Yeah, so we're working on that calendar now.
Yeah,
And
add
Dell
me to one of those. I'd like to be on a Dell AI
I'll
panel.
put you on there for sure. I think
Yeah.
it'd be great. Yeah, we've been doing them. We've been doing collaboration with alliance partners, data center companies, just trying to switch it up as we go city to city. They've been getting really well attended. Customers, Dell employees, even partners, and ISVs that are in those regions, right? But yeah, upcoming events. There's several road shows, and everything's on Dell.com if anyone's looking for corporate events.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So then let me go ahead and end with this. First of all, thank you for being with us and having the audience live here with you. And I appreciate your time, Michael. And to the listener, thanks for sticking with us to the end of today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode or any of our episodes, the best way to support this show is to hit subscribe so you never miss an insight packed interview. Share this episode with someone who's curious about the future of AI and tech. Your recommendations help us reach more listeners every week. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube and tell us what you want to hear next. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram for behind the scenes updates and exclusive content. Join us next week as we dive into what will be another fantastic story about AI, and will trust us, you won't want to miss it. Until then, keep pushing boundaries and stay curious. Your feedback is what keeps this community right.
Unlock the art of AI by joining us on your favorite podcast platform every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.